Okay. Good. Okay, we're going to see the architecture today. Yesterday we have seen only the installation, which means we have taken downloaded the file from probably oracle.com, and then we dumped it onto our system in a very systematic way. Then we looked at the architecture of what kind of directories were created after we dumped it, or what we called installed it on our systems. Now from that installation, we have to create the structure of WebLogic server which can run any Java application. Now when we are creating a WebLogic structure, or your application server structure in this case, we need to understand the basic things, the skeleton kind of look that WebLogic has, what we usually call domains, servers, admin server, managed server, all these things. So we're going to talk about all the terminology today, how they relate to each other, you know, what it is actually when somebody says WebLogic application server. Alright, so here we go. Oops. Okay, now this is an analogy that usually fits in roughly into that structure, of how an application server looks like, or what are the various components of application server. Now let's say you take a map of a country like, for example, India. Then the main India is composed of lots of states. Last kind of, you have every state. Now each of those states have a specific geographical area, means they are physically identifiable. Now the same way, if you take that country, in this country, probably not the most important place considering New Delhi, that's where the administration happens for the entire country. Basically, it's, everything gets done from that location, all the important decisions, everything. Now the same way, in WebLogic application server, there is a physical component or a process that is called admin server, which takes care of your entire application server. It's called an admin server. It's a process, or let's say it's a Java process, a JVM in other words. So we keep using all these words: admin server, it's a Java process, or more frequently we keep using it's a JVM. So there is a JVM on your server, means we can physically see it. If you go into task manager, or if you do a ps-ef and grep for the process, you will be able to see that process. It's called admin server. Then after this admin server, there is only one admin. Yeah, I did start recording that one. Recording is on, so but really thanks for reminding me that. I sometimes I forget that thing. So the first one, we have the most important one, is an admin server. That's a process, all right, or it's a JVM that can be physically seen on your system, that administers everything, the capital. Apart from that, then there are managed servers. Now, just like a country, you have one admin server, n number of managed servers. There is no limit to the number of managed servers you can have. But ideally, there is a practical limitation. We will talk about that limitation in a few moments. All right. So there is an admin server. There are n managed servers. Then all these managed servers are managed by your admin server, just like in a country. The managed servers, just like in a country, you have states and capital. Your states have independent rules at local level, and the overall administration happens from a centralized capital. The same way here, managed servers, they are capable of running on their own, but there are certain services, right, centralized services like authentication, that do happen from the admin server. It's just like, individual, you have got a police force and you got army. That's kind of, services. Army gets used by everybody, Central Reserve Force gets used by everybody, and you got a local police. Each state has its own. The same way, managed servers, they can run independently, but there are certain crucial services required by admin, offered by admin server that every managed server uses. So if there is one admin, multiple managed servers, the managed servers are being managed by the admin server. That's what we usually call. That's the reason they are called managed servers, because they get managed by an admin server. Now again, all these admin server or managed servers, whatever we are saying, they're simply Java process. For operating system, if you ask what these processes are, operating system would answer probably they are simple Java process. They all look the same. Now in a domain, okay, let me come to the domain now. So here you got an admin server, then you got a managed server, and number of managed servers you got. Now all these things together you call it domain. Means it's a logical combination. A domain is a logical grouping of physical servers. So you got an admin server which is a JVM, you got n managed servers which are all JVMs. These things together you call a domain. A domain is a logical combination. Means you cannot see a process called domain on your box. If you are on a Windows box, a much easier one, let's say if you go to Windows Task Manager, you cannot see anything called a domain. It doesn't exist. Whereas the domain elements, the admin server, the managed servers, they do exist. You will be able to see them as Java process running. So domain is a logical grouping of one admin, that's for sure. There are not more than one admin. WebLogic does not allow more admins. There is no active passive admins kind of thing. There is only one admin, n managed servers. The n, we will come to that n part later. What is that max value of n? So admin and managed servers together we call logically a domain. Now all these are Java processes and they are in a kind of relationship with each other, means they are working together. When they are working together, they need to communicate with each other. Now just like any other two processes, they use what are called sockets to communicate. A socket is usually an IP port combination. Just the way usually the process communicate in a regular LAN. Every process has a unique address, IP colon port number, which is called a socket. So here it listens, the what we are calling the port, it's basically is listening on that port. If you take for example a web server, a web server would usually listen on 80 port. I think I've given 10,001 here. That's not correct. So a web server like Apache or iPlanet or OHS, Oracle HTTP server, the default port is usually 80. Then the telnet that we usually connect to, it has it's not correct, 23 is not correct. Telnet listens on 404, I believe. Then SSH again is 22. So basically the point here is don't even don't take the port numbers exactly as they are. We're trying to just say if there is an SSH process which is running, it's listening on port number 22. Means on your box there is a process listening on port number 22. So if you are opening a putty session and when you are sending, so if I open a putty session here in our system, so what we are doing yesterday was, we opened a putty session, then we sent a request to our cloud server. Let's say 192.168.128.6. This is our cloud server. The default port for SSH is 22. Now we changed it on our cloud server, so we changed it to 59.233. So our SSH process is running on 59.233. Then you got it. So SSH process has listened for an incoming request. It has given the prompt. Then we log in the prompt, using our regular process. So what we are trying to establish here is every process requires a socket. A socket is nothing but a IP colon port number. Just the same way the JVM process that we are looking at, the admin and the managed servers, alright, they all require sockets so that they can communicate with each other and from the external world. So that the external world, other process can send requests to those sockets. Alright, so here we go. So a domain has one admin, n managed servers, and these servers communicate with each other using sockets. Now when one process wants to send a message to another one, it simply sends it to that IP port on which the other process is listening. Now the process of, when you're starting any process on a system, it binds to that port. That's what we call, if SSH is listening on 22 port number, the SSH process, while the system is booting up, SSH will bind to port 22. So what we call it, binding. Binding is basically starting itself to listen on a specific port. The binding is helped by the operating system. And this IP port, just like your house address is unique for any process, means on a single system two processes cannot use the same port because the IP part remains same. So every process on a system will have a different port number to listen on. That way, on a network, on a LAN, if you take, all systems have different IP. So from system to system the IP will change, and within a system the port will change. That way any process running on any system will have a unique combination. So that will have a unique socket. Now this is a domain sample structure we are looking at. There is an admin server which would be listening on an IP 192.168.128.3. For example, let's say 20,001 port. Then a managed server would be listening on 20,010 port with the same IP. Here in this case, if you take the combination of IP and port, that's still unique. What we are looking at is a socket. So the socket is still unique for both these servers. They can communicate with each other. Again, the same way, another managed server if you have on another different port number, 20,020 kind of thing. Alright, so here these things together form a domain. You can call the domain with any name you want. Let's say we call it encode daemon. Now here the important points, or some of the important points. As I said, admin and managed servers, they are only from WebLogic perspective, but if you ask operating system what they are, it would simply say they are just Java process. Now inside the Java process, the activity is taking place probably different. An admin server tries to administer everything, the entire domain, whereas a managed server tries to actually run the code. Because admin server and managed server, we are creating this group, isn't it? We are creating this group so that we can run a Java application on top of it. Now that Java application which is about to come from a developer to us will be put on to the managed servers. So usually in a real-time environment, we don't put anything onto the admin server. We leave the admin server for the administrative activities. You understand the difference about admin servers, the importance of admin server as we move on with further chapters, because you will understand what happens if admin is not available. So admin is one critical element in your entire domain, without which probably you may not be able to do certain things. So we keep the admin very light so that there are no problems on the admin server. And the managed servers, because they are redundant, so we will put our application onto the managed servers. Even if one of the managed servers goes down, you still will not have any problem because they're redundant, whereas admin is not. So you keep the admin very light. You don't touch it unless you really need to. Now there may be a domain where we don't want a managed server. Let's say here. Means you have a very small application, Java application, you want to deploy it to WebLogic server. But nobody is actually accessing it. Only probably 100 employees of your company are accessing that Java application. In that case, you don't really want to start too many processes, one admin, one managed server, so that admin administers, managed server actually runs the application. That kind of, it's good to hear, but it's not, it takes up a lot of resources. Why run two processes when it is not required? In that case, the admin server can administer itself and can also run the application. The point here being, admin is a fully capable managed server also. Assuming you don't have enough load, or if you are only testing, let's say, admin server itself forms a domain. You don't need a managed server. That's what a developer usually do. When a developer is creating the code or writing the code, they need to test it every time. So what they do is they have only one admin server running. So the moment the code is developed, and that admin server is usually attached to the Eclipse that they are using. So what they do is in the Eclipse, to create entire code, there will be a drop down that says simply deploy to the server. So it goes to the admin server and they will be able to test it. Or you may, in that case, the domain has only one server. So here, an admin server itself can form a domain, assuming you don't really need a managed server in that case. But normally in all production environments, obviously there will be enough load so that you require at least a couple of managed servers. Now, in a typical production environment, you would see anywhere a decently, or at least a normal medium-sized production level, you will have one admin server, at least 10 to 15 managed servers. Now these 10 to 15 managed servers are spread across 3 to 4 boxes. Usually you won't keep more than 3 or 4 JVMs per box, not more than that. That's usually the safe point. And the total number, now obviously all these managed servers are depending, these managed servers will depend on the admin for certain services. Because they all depend on this admin for certain services, obviously there is a limit or an extent to which the admin server can satisfy that load. Now that extent in a domain is 15 managed servers. That means you can put practically at max 15 managed servers per domain. Those 15 managed servers will be served by one admin server. If it is more than 15, your admin starts hanging. So when you are recommending your architectural recommendations, do not put more than 15. In fact, 12 is a safe number. 15 is really, sometimes can cause problems when your servers are starting up. The servers will be coming up, they will try to talk to the admin, all of them at a time, and the admin hangs. Then you need to restart all of them at a time, which will give you an almost 30 to 45 minutes in a production outage or maintenance time, which is really precious. You're going to get our directors and VPs onto the bridge just because we did not configure it properly. So don't put more than 15 servers. That's a practical limitation per domain. But if you need more servers, let's say your load requires that you need to have hundreds of servers, in that case create more number of domains so that every 15 servers have one admin to manage them. And then you put all these hundreds of instances into your load balancer. Load balancer does not really care what is a WebLogic domain or a WebSphere domain or it's something else, a Apache process. Load balancer doesn't care. Load balancer simply takes a socket. That's it. It sends it to the socket. Now in our case, all our managed servers are from different domains. We put them into the load balancer. Alright, so basically admin and managed servers both are same in terms of capability. Now depending on the load, you may have a single admin in a domain, or you may have admin and lots of managed servers in a domain, and you may have lots of domains in your environment. So admin server is for administering the domain, and managed servers are usually the ones that will host your application, and that's where the request directly lands. Here there is another point here. The load balancer does not send the request to the admin, and admin does not manage the request and user request. Now you may start thinking from load balancer request will come to the admin will distribute the request. No, that's wrong. Admin has no role in distributing any request. Admin is simply lying there. The managed servers are directly configured in the load balancer, all the sockets. The load balancer will directly send the request to the managed servers. Admin server is only for internal purposes. It's not to distribute the load. It's not a load balancer. So a load balancer is outside WebLogic usually. So they are all obviously JVMs. Admin server and managed server all have physical presence. So you can do a process check on a Unix system like ps-ef, and you can grep for that JVM. We will see that all those things. And if you are on Windows system, you can go to the task manager. You will be able to see all Java process, one of them being admin, others being managed servers. Now obviously This configuration, the name of the servers, the socket number they are using, the name of the domain, all this information has to be stored somewhere. Now that file where all this information gets stored is called config.xml file, and that file along with all your admin and managed servers is called a domain. So application server basically is nothing but a domain, a logical grouping of one admin and managed servers and all the files, configuration files related to them. So here if you say the config.xml, we'll see that thing when it gets created. So if a domain has only one server, in that case obviously it becomes admin, alright, and that Java process, the JVM, will host the Java application in that scenario. Some questions asked in by previous students before we go on to creating a domain. These are some of the questions. Can a domain have two admin servers? I think instead of asking you a question, I'll answer it directly. It cannot have. Means it's good if we have it, because every time we talk about redundancy, all that stuff, but WebLogic has no such provision to have two admin servers in a domain. Now there may be architectures where you may want another admin server, a running admin server. Or in that case, what we usually do is, assuming the box running the admin went down, we use a concept called floating IPs. A floating IP is something it assigns itself to a different physical server in the event the first server went down. So in that case, all that we are doing is we have another admin server files, configuration files, everything in a different box. The moment the first box goes down, we are taking the IP and moving out to the second box and starting a server over there, admin server that will become. In that case, the managed servers, because managed servers communicate with admin using the socket IP:port, and when you are doing a floating IP thing, the IP:port never really changes. It's only the hardware that changes. So managed servers don't even realize that there is a failure of admin server. That's one approach that usually gets implemented. There is nothing like active passive admin servers that you will see in a high level high availability architecture. Just do a little googling on two admin server setup. You will find an architecture with a floating IP diagram, or let me know, I'll send it across to you. I have it somewhere on my box. So here are the second one, and then again I think how many max number of managed servers a domain can have. We have already answered this. This is a max limit is 15 and the safe limit is 12. And if somebody asks should I put 15, and probably your answer would be better keep 12. That would be a safer side. 15 is okay, but let's keep 12. We all will be in a safer side. Don't have issues in that case. Then, does WebLogic application server mean admin, or is it managed servers? None of them. A WebLogic app server means a domain. An admin, if you have managed servers, you have managed servers, then all the configuration files, everything related to it. So when somebody says app server, from a WebLogic admin perspective, we are actually referring to a domain. Now this domain obviously has to be created by the admins as when you are setting up the entire environment. Now this domain structure will be designed by the architect when we are planning everything, during the capacity planning, after your capacity planning. When you're setting the architecture, you will decide how your domain should look like. Means how many managed servers you have, which is based on the load that you get. And the load is obviously the customer is going to tell you about the load. A customer may say I may receive 10,000 requests per day. In that case, we will see how many managed servers are required to handle 10,000 requests. In that case, you have to perform a load test depending on what kind of application you are using. The load test will tell you what is the max limit of each managed server. So you take a managed server, You put the application on top of it and you simulate the load. You take it to a point till it breaks. That's a break point, which means, let's say if 1000 is a break point for a JVM, means we have created a server, we have deployed our application, then you run a tool like HP load runner. The load runner simulates the load, so it starts create. You can create use cases in it, so it creates load on your JVM. Let's say you have increased the number of users to 1000, or number of requests to 1000, then the server crashed. So now you know 1000 is a max limit. So if 1000 is one JVM what it can take, and you are about to get 10,000 requests, obviously you will require 10 JVMs. Now that's a mathematical limit. Now for 10 JVMs you're going to add 50% more and recommend it to the client. So you're going to say you need 15 JVMs. So that even if there is a fluctuation in the load, you will still be able to have a proper infrastructure. So that's your capacity planning actually. That will be taken care by the architect. Now as an admin, you will be asked to create that structure. The plan will come to you. But if you are the admin, you have to plan everything depending on a lot of factors. So domain creation, again, it can be done in 3 modes. You can do it in GUI mode like we did the installation yesterday. You can do it in text mode, like no GUI kind of thing. A third one is a silent one in case of installation, whereas in a domain creation we don't have silent type of thing, but a similar one called template based domain creation we have. Now we will see that during WL03 a usual way of creating a domain is either second one or third one. You will create a fresh domain from a console, a text mode domain creation, or if you have templates, we can recreate whatever was in the template. A template is basically a standard structure, isn't it? Just like any other template, a domain can also have template. We can also create templates, so we will see how to create our own templates later. So these are 3 ways you can create a domain. The most frequently used one being this console mode, which gives you a complete control of your what kind of names you want, what of IP port numbers you want, everything you will get a control on that. Template based, you just recreate something that exists already. Now there are 2 important files that are related. We will come across these files during domain creation. One is the WLS.jar file. This is the blueprint that we are going to use to create our domain now. When you are installing, you remember this directory under WL home common. Bin directory is where we went in. This is domains and templates directory. Let me go into that directory. So I log into the cloud server. So here we go. Yes, I think, sorry Chanara, I didn't see that question. Your question is, I have one, you have 15 managed servers in a machine, we will have 15 JVMs. Will it because of performance issues? Can we have single JVM for all managed servers? No. Now the question, in that there is an assumption that you made. I said 15 managed servers, I never said single box. Those 15 managed servers are never in a single box, it's too much. A single machine will have not more than 4 managed servers. So when we have a domain which has 15 managed servers, now okay, before we go there, I'll just let the other guys, Deepak and Kalyan, Chinarao is asking this question, see this question. I think I'll post it for everybody. So, everybody, all of you got this already. So you can see that question. So the question is basically we have 15 managed servers. Obviously, if they are all on a single machine, we do have performance issues. I don't think there is any box that can handle 15 JVMs. We don't want to keep such a box. It would look like a mainframe in that case. We want simple, replaceable modules. If the box goes down, we don't want all the 15 managed servers to get impacted. So in a real scenario, you will not have more than 4 servers, 4 JVMs. So in our case, 15 managed servers will be spread across 4 boxes, each one having at least 4. So that's how your domain is spread across multiple boxes. And to answer your second question, you can't have single JVM for all managed servers. A managed server means a JVM. So admin server is a JVM. Every managed server is a JVM. On that JVM, we're going to run a Java application. JVM and managed servers are not two different things. They're same. Does that clear the questions? Does it answer your question? Cool. Okay, so now that we are on to our cloud server. Yes, what's that question, Kalyan? You can ask me. I mean, you can talk actually. Unmute all. Yeah, what's the question? Yeah, I did. I unmuted you. You can actually. I think you can do unmute yourself. The control is at your end also.
It's not getting unmuted, Tara.
It's not? Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. What's the question?
I think it's Kalyan turn.
Yeah. Kalyan, can you hear me? You are speaking. I can't hear you. Mhm. Just type the question in that case. If we clone the managed servers, will be the settings same? Yes, they will be exactly same. Yes, that's the point of usually that's when we use a clone. You don't want to create a fresh managed server and do the customization. Instead, you create one managed server, set up all the custom settings, clone it. Yes, they will be same. They'll be exactly same in fact. It will be. JDBC and JMS are not properties of managed server. They are targeted to the managed servers. So JDBC, JMS are separate elements in a domain. So if you have to clone, if you have to get JDBC and JMS onto a different managed server, you have to go into JDBC and tell that go to that managed server also. When you clone a managed server, you get the properties of the managed servers only. If you need to get JDBC and JMS, you have to go into JDBC settings, target it to the newly created managed server. The structure, I think if you go into console, when you create a data source, I'm not sure if you have done it. If you go into data source, the data source has targets. So the targets are targeted to managed servers and then each of the managed servers. So in that case, when you are creating a clone, if you are not getting JDBC and JMS, we have to get into JDBC and JMS individuals and then retarget. But as far as I know, you would get even the JDBC and JMS settings also. We will do that. We will check it and see. Okay, let me see. We will do that when we are actually working on JDBC and JMS. Don't worry. I never really. I don't think we came across any such problem, but well, sure, we'll do that. Okay, now that we are in, yeah, so we are into WL home common domain. So let's say we go into that location. Yesterday we have installed our WebLogic under students online. We have installed a lot of installations. So we're going to use only BA10G. We can actually remove all these things. I'm going to remove all these things. Just we have done almost 4 installations, so we're going to require only one. So remove the rest. Okay, now we have only one, so let's get into BEA. BEA 10G, this is BEA home. Under BEA home you got WL home. So under WL home, yesterday we went into common and server, so again go into common. This was what we looked at yesterday. Now we're going to look at templates. CD into templates, domain related templates. So go into domains related templates. This is a skeleton file. This is a template based on which we're going to create our custom domain. Now we can create such templates. We will see how to create those templates later, but a default template is given by WebLogic installation. We're going to use the default template wls.jar file, alright, in this location. It's in WL home common templates domains. Using this we will be creating a custom domain, and this is the script that gets lets you create a domain. It's called domain configuration wizard. That's a fancy name for creating. It's a simple Unix script. The Unix script will let you create a domain, and this script, just like your installer, can be run in all the three modes. GUI mode, you can run it in console mode, or we can run it in what is called a template mode. So this is domain creation wizard. It's available in common bin of your installation. So here, if you go to WL home, this is WL home, alright. Under this, common bin, this is common. Go into bin, you will have config.sh file. This is the domain creation wizard, and this script lets you create the domains the way you want. Okay, this is the one. Now the config.internally, as I said, the config.sh internally calls this wls.jar file to create the domain. A wls.jar file is the default template that we use. We can also create our own jar files, what we call templates. We will see that template creation in our WLST. So we see how to create a template from an existing domain and how to use that template to create multiple similar domains. Basically the cloning process. A cloning of domain is usually done using a template. Now we're going to create this domain, alright. This is a sample domain that we're going to create, the custom domain. It will have one admin server with the port number, probably any port number. Now, okay, before we go further, the port numbers that we can use usually range from, a system has port numbers up to from 1 to 65, 535 something. So you have 2 power 16 minus 1, 65, 535, that's a number. So here if you say, oops, sorry. Alright, so you got a range from 1 to 65, 535. That's it. So this is actually 2 power 16 minus 1. That's actual number. Now out of these ports, all systems have these many number of ports, but out of these ports, the usually 1 to 1024 or 23 ports are called privileged ports. Privileged ports in the sense, operating system itself has certain process, like SSH is a process, Telnet is a process, FTP is a process. The daemons, they are also process, right? So they will require certain ports to run or start listening. So operating system itself uses all this range of ports. So they're called privileged ports, and if you want to start your own process on any of the ports in this range, you need to be root. That's the reason they're called privileged ports. Hence only root can start a process and bind it to any port in this range. A regular user can use the remaining ports. So you got from 1024 to remaining port 65535. So usually for a WebLogic domain, we pick up a specific range or a series like 7,000 series, 8,000 series, 10,000 series. The same way here we are picking up 20,000 series. It's commonly because you will have a QA environment with probably 6,000 series, UAT environment with 7,000 series, then a LT environment with 8,000 series. A production would be probably 9,000 series. So the series will basically differentiate which environment you are working on. That's a common way of putting things in real time. Let's say here we have a 20,000 port. We call the admin server encode ADM and the managed server encode MNG1, which runs on 20,010. Then you got another managed server 20,020, which is that port number. For all these servers, if they are all running on a same box, the IP will be same. But if they are running on multiple boxes, the IP will be different. So we will see that part also. How do you extend the domain to a second box later? So here, the domain creation, we got again, as I said, using config.sh. You can run it in GUI mode. You can run it in console mode or template. I think the remaining parts are not given. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it in console mode only. Later we will do it in template mode. GUI mode, I'm not expecting too much trouble in there. I'm going to send you a document with all the screenshots for GUI mode also, but I suggest don't do it in GUI mode. You're never going to work on a GUI. I think the moment you are into WebLogic administration, you better forget about GUI part. You start working on command prompt. That's much faster, much efficient, and you will understand the internals of running anything when you're working on command prompt, because you need to get into locations. So here we go. So we have our config.sh. Alright, now launch the config.sh with -mode equal to console. That's it. This will let you create a new domain. Again, this is just like your installation or ATM menu. You select an option, you give the inputs for that option. So here I'm creating a new domain, or I can extend an existing domain. Extension in a case, let's say you can add certain services, or you can change certain services. That's the extension of an existing domain. Whereas creation is a fresh domain creation. So let's say we create a fresh domain here. Option 1, move on. Now choose a WebLogic platform components. Now, because we are not using any custom template here, we are using the default wls.jar file. If you are using a custom template, this is the location where you would use that one. Same config.sh, but with a custom template. In our case, currently we are using a standard template wls.jar file to create our new domain. So option 1. Now WebLogic server is obviously the mandatory component. A workshop, we're not going to select this one or choose this one. So the mandatory one is what we require. So that's already selected with a cross mark here. So cross mark means selection. So once the selection is already there, move on to next. This is where you set up your administration username password. Configure administrator username password. Now this is what username, password, confirm the password. Now if you want to change any of them, follow this menu here. Option 1, modify username. We're going to change the username from WebLogic to something else. Let's say WLS admin. This is a very common username you will see in most of the environments. So that's the reason I'm using it. Even in my office, we have the same username. So WLS admin. Password, second thing, modify user password. I am following these options. So option 2, enter new user password. This is where I am reading. So I am selecting an option. I am doing what my config.sh is asking me to do. I'm just reading through these instructions. It's a very simple thing. So I'll keep the same password, WLS admin. So here you got it. Then option 3, confirm the password, WLS admin again, confirm. That's it, done. I don't want to change the description. Move on to next. Now a domain or the servers in a domain, they run in two different modes. One is development mode, other one is production. And these modes have nothing to do with developer or a system administrator. It's not like a developer uses development mode and a system admin uses a production mode. No, there is no such thing. These are internal WebLogic states, and even developers have to use production mode when they are actually testing it. But there are differences between internal WebLogic development mode and production mode uh, in terms of settings, in terms of feature set and features. So we will talk about all those features, everything during deployment. That's when you will get a clear understanding about what's the difference between these two modes. But otherwise, most of the domains you should, especially for production, you should select the production mode. The difference for now, just remember that we have selected production mode. I'll come back to the differences during deployment. That's when you will actually understand what they are. So I'm selecting option 2. So we have selected production here, and this is the time where you select your JDK. We have installed 2 JDKs yesterday, but we did not use any of them. So this is the time you're going to choose one of them. You cannot have 2 JDKs because admin and manage server, they're all JVMs. So they are basically Java process running from a JDK. So JRocket and Sun JDK, let's say we select Sun JDK here. Alright, this is a more popular one, Sun JDK. Most of the times you will see this one. Then this is a very important question. This is where you might go kind of wrong sometimes. Look at the question. Do you want to modify any of the pre-configured settings or defaults in your template? Our template is wls.jar file. This is our template. What is that one? This is our template, wls.jar file. This wls.jar file, inside it has a single server. Means the name of the server is my server, the name of the domain is my domain. That's how the template is. Now the question being asked here is, do you want to change those settings? Of course you want to change it. You don't want a domain called my domain. You don't want a server called my server. You have a custom domain that you want to create, encode DMN with encode ADM, encode MNC, all those things. So just read through the question and answer it. So you want to change it, yes. Now just now you have created a username password. Now later when you start the servers or when you log in to manage this domain, you have to provide this username password. Now obviously when you have to provide this username password, that whatever you have provided will be matched with this one, and this has to be stored somewhere. Now usually you can store it in a file or you can store it in a database. A most frequently used method is to store it in a file. Otherwise, if you store it in a database, usually what happens is you are creating a dependency. During the startup of managed servers and admin, you will require this username password, and if you put the original username password in a database, maybe your servers will not be able to start in that case. So usually you don't want to change anything here in this option. So go ahead with the default settings here. Right, you don't really want to change anything, so move on to next. Now this is a configuration of admin server. So you're going to change all these things according to our settings. This is what the domain that we want to create. Alright, so it's called encode DMN. I think it shows dsoft DMN, so don't worry about it. So encode DMN is the name of the domain, encode ADM is the admin server name, MNG1 is managed server 1 name, MNG2 is managed server 2 name. So we're going to give all those details here. So modify name, encode ADM is the name of the admin server, listener address, modify listener address, give the listener address of your box. This is the listener address of your box. Modify the port number. Let's say we are using 20001. SSL listen port we are not enabling now, so you don't have to give that port. That's it. you're done with all your changes. Just follow this and this. That's it. When you follow this and this, your changes will be reflected at this. So move on to next. This is configuration of the managed servers. Alright. So give a managed server name and code mng1, let's say. So that's been put in here. You can change all the settings of this mng1. Option 2 is listener address. So give the listener address. Modify listener address 192.168.128.6. That's listener address. Now modify listen port 20,010. That's what we thought we would give. So that's it. You're done. You can add one more server if you want. So you're done with manage server 1. Now you are given an option add. So you are adding the second manage server. You did not get this option for admin server because you cannot add multiple admin servers. So this is manage server 2. Again, you got second server here. Change the settings of that server. Option 2, change the listener address 128.6. Change the listen port 20,010. 20,020 is what's supposed to do. So modify listen port 20,020. Now if you observed it, for admin I given 20,001. For manage server 1 I did not give 20,002. Instead I gave 20,010. This is a normal sequence you usually use. You pick up a series, the first port goes to the admin at 10, 20, 30, 40, like that they go to the managed servers. You don't give port 1, 2, 3, 4 to the managed servers. The reason is a later point of time, let's say here managed server 1, we may want to open up SSL. When you say SSL, usually you will put it on the next port. 20,010 is a regular port of managed server 1. When you want to add additional port number or a socket to the managed server, you would usually do GUI mode is user friendly, but you won't have it in a Linux system. User friendliness is a problem with Linux. When we are working on Linux, so we really not expecting much user friendliness over there. And this is the situation you come across. There will be situations where you will be asked to go into a data center and create it under running fans. So no GUIs. It's really hard even to get a command prompt there. We should get used to the command prompt. It's a little bit not confusing. It's messy. So you will get used to that messiness in a couple of domains, after a couple of domains. So here again, we usually don't pick up continuous port numbers. We give or leave certain port numbers as reserves for all the managed servers. So next thing here, so here we are done with managed server 2. That's it. When two servers are enough, we can add servers later at any point of time. So move on to next. This is about configuring clusters. We don't have any clusters at this point. We will create them later. Configure machines again, so we don't have any machines. This will be created during node manager. So for now you don't need that. Unix machines also same. Now we'll create them later. This is an important one. Select the target domain directory for this domain, which means where do you want to create this domain. If you see, this is a default location for all domains. You can use the default location, or else in some projects, because you don't want to touch the BA installation, you may want to create your domains in a different location. So let's go ahead with the default this thing. Because many of the projects use the default settings, so it would be easier, or at least you will remember the paths if you go with the defaults. Or else we can create a directory called domains. Under this, there you can create your domain. So either way it's okay. So let's say I go ahead with the same default location, this thing. Right, just to make things simple for now. You can customize later. So move on to next. This is the name of the domain. A default name is base domain, which gets created under this location. Means a directory with this name gets created under this location you are given. So if we want a different name for our domain, just give that domain name. So let's say our domain name is encodedmn. That's the directory that would get created under here. So if I open another session, duplicate it, encode IT, clear. So cd to that location where we wanted to create a domain. That's not that. Okay. It would get created in that case. It gets created, don't worry, when we finish this by this time. So here, move on to next. That's it. The domain creation is happening. Now if you come back here, you should have user underscore projects. Yeah, here we go. And your domain creation is pretty much done. So you have created a domain with this, the custom structure where you have one admin, two managed servers. You called it encodedmn. Now let's go to the location of creation. So here we are, user underscore projects, domains. This is the domain that you have created. Go into that, and this path is called domain home. So we have lots of variables so far. We have a BEA home, we have a WL home, you have a workshop home if you have installed workshop, then you have a Java home. Now this is a fifth one or sixth one, I think. Now this is a fifth one. This is called domain home, which means your domain is located here. All the files related to the domain, everything related to the domain is located in this path. And most of the time you will be working here only. You will be spending most of your time under domain home. Now let's have a list of directories under domain home. The important directories are bin directory, config directory. The config is the most important one. So in the config directory, you have a file config.xml. And this is the most important file. This is where all the information that just now we have given during the domain creation is stored. So let's say if you want to open it, I'm taking a backup before I open. You can open it in a less command. This would give a browsable window, or I want to show it in a colorful way. So this is a VA. So up to this part, these are all XSDs, XML schema definitions, that will tell you how an XML file should be defined. So you can forget about those things. This is the name of the domain. This is the version of your domain. Then if you come down further, let's say you come down further, this is a password, this is a username. Now this username and password are not for regular this thing. Username and password, they are not for console login. They are for actually node manager. We will talk about these username password later. These are different. Then each of the servers that we have created have this block of code. This is the beginning of server, this is the end of that server, the XML tags. And in there you have three properties: the name, the listen port, and the listen address. Now if you want to change these things later, we can actually come down to config.xml, this file, change it here and restart your servers. The changes will take effect. Means at any point of time you can simply change the listen address, listen port from the console, or sorry, from the config.xml, restart the servers. They will be effective. The same way managed server 1 has this, is managed server 2 has this one. And then we have selected production mode, and this is a tag to indicate that your servers are in production mode. You can turn it to false, or you can remove this entire line to change your domain into development mode. Now sometimes if you turn it to false, it may not work sometimes. In that case you may have to remove this entire tag. And some other times, even after removing this tag, it may still be in production mode. In that case, we have other settings. I'll tell you about those settings later. You need to give the XMS parameters of your JVM. That we'll see. So, but normally in a very a perfect scenario, if you have this, you are in production mode. If you delete this, you are in development mode. Then, out of all the servers that are listed earlier, this is the admin. See, in previous configurations, if you look at here, all the configuration is same. It simply lists three parameters: name, listen address, listen port. It does not tell which one is what. So that's the last line that is telling which one is what. The last line says the admin server is this one. The moment you see this line, probably you got idea that if you want to change the admin later, let's say you want to make MNG1 as the admin server of your domain, you're changing the leader. All that you have to do is come down to this place, instead of ADM here, you change to MNG1 and restart all the servers. That will change the admin server of your domain. So admin server can be changed later. It's simply like you're replacing one with another one. So that's your config.sh. So config.xml file.
Anil, like manager servers, admin server is doesn't show up with legend address and port
They are. All of them are shown,
in
right?
config.xml.
Come on. Everything is same. This is admin server.
Oh, okay. Below I'm seeing.
This is only telling which one is admin.
Okay.
It says, which one is admin server. The definition of our details are here, just like other servers.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool. So here I quit it. Now the other directories in here are bin directory. This is again, we are back to domain home. Alright. So go into bin directory, you will have all the startup scripts. This is a startup script for admin, start WebLogic. The same way, stop script for admin, stop WebLogic. Then start manage WebLogic, stop manage WebLogic. And also another important file, set domain env. This will set the domain environment. If you remember, yesterday we have seen set WLS env, which was in WL home server bin. So that's a overall WebLogic environment setup. A WebLogic environment may be being used by multiple domains. So in that case, each domain environment can be set using set domain env. These are the startup shutdown scripts for this domain, and this is the config. Then you have a security folder here. This is important, and this is your most important file, serialized system.ini.dat file. This is where your original username password is stored. All user details, passwords, groups, everything gets stored here. And this obviously is a encrypted file. You won't be able to see it, but that's where actually it means if you miss this file, or if you delete, or if this gets corrupted, you may not be able to start your domain. Or let's say you are getting authentication error, or some files missing, or some users not able to log in. You can pick up a backup of this file from a previous date, replace this file with a new file, and then try to start your domain. You should be able to pretty much start it with the previous configuration. That's your security. About the other files in this directory, we may come across some of them later. We will come here again. So those are the important directories. There is another directory that will come here. It's called servers directory. So we're not going to create it. When we start the server, one of the server, admin servers or managed server, that directory gets created. That directory name is servers directory. So we'll come to that directory later. Alright. So these are some of the important directories. So you got config, you got bin, you got security. We'll come to lib also. Lib is where all you put your jar files. They will be picked up by the servers automatically. Anything you put under lib gets picked up by the server during the startup. So this is a regular domain structure. Now you will get to remember all these names, files, everything, because most of your time you will be spending here itself. Alright, that's your domain creation using console mode. A template mode is how you create a template and how to use that template to create a new domain that we will discuss in WLST. Alright, I think I'll stop it here for today. We'll take a short session only. I want to get used to that creation of domain, and then we'll slowly increase the speed. And as we move forward, we'll be picking up more speed. It won't be as slow as today's one. But till you get familiar with all these things, basic stuff, fundamentals, which are really important, we'll go a little slow. So I'll stop it here for today. Let you create the domain. Don't bother about the GUI mode unless you really want to see what the screenshots are. I'm going to send you a document. I think let me send it now itself. And the PPT.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, Neil, this is Kalyan.
Yeah, Kalyan, tell me.
Yeah, I have a doubt. I'm little bit confused in concept of when a request comes from end user, how these bits and ACLs are working from the load balancer to web server and app server. Because in the real time too, it's a little bit confusing concept. So could you please help us in understanding from end user to load balancer, how the bits are configured and conveyed to the server?
Wasn't it there on the first installation architecture? Let me show you. I'll come back there.
Yeah.
So these are the two files. One will show you the screenshots, other one is the PPT we have been using. So day 2 content. Alright, so here you got Deepa. What? Here we go. Okay, now let's come back to your question. You want to know the real-time flow.
Yeah, I will send you just meeting other guys because it's very difficult.
Which one?
Can you meet everybody it's little bit of disturbance?
Disturbance. Okay. Yeah, now everything is clear. I think some noise is coming from somewhere. That's fine. So let me show you with it. It's in the first this thing.